Good evening, and welcome to Mysteries by Moonlight, a show on what darkness can't hide. We are here to dive into the unknown, the unsolved, and the unspoken of. My name is Stephanie, and thank you for joining me here from wherever you are. Tonight, for our first episode ever, we will be exploring an unsolved case with many, many questions, and unfortunately, very few answers. Do you feel safe at home? Most people do. It's the one place designed for us to go to at the end of a long day to recharge, relax, and begin again the next sunrise. But for some, this isn't so simple. Even in the most tranquil of places, where we expect to be safe and sound, that we've worked hard to build, home can quickly become a nightmare. For the couple in this case, they unfortunately experienced the very same. The 6th of May 2014, Putnam County, Georgia. An elderly couple had been living in their home on Lake Oconee for over a decade, enjoying retirement when trouble befell them. On this day, Russell Dermond, 88 years old, was found dead on the floor of his garage by neighbors, his head gone. The body laying in a pool of blood between the couple's two cars. Blood smears made it seem as though Russell's body was moved into this poorly hidden position. Towels were placed around his blood's pooling pattern as to prevent it from leaking beneath the garage's closed double doors. Gunshot residue would later be found on the collar of Russell's shirt, leading the county sheriff to determine he was shot in the head and then decapitated to prevent the police from finding the bullets and it being traced back to them. His wife of many decades, Shirley Dermond, 87 years old, was nowhere to be found. This would not be for long. 10 days later, on the 16th of May 2014, her body was found floating on the Greene County side of Lake Oconee by two fishermen in the area, by a local dam, and nearly 5 miles away from the home she shared with her husband. Cause of death was later determined to be bludgeoning, beaten to death, along with 2 to 3 deep wounds to the head, caused by a blunt object. Her body was weighed down by two concrete blocks weighing 30 pounds each and left at the bottom of the lake until her remains resurfaced on their own. As of the time of my research and this recording, June 2025, this double murder remains unsolved, and especially shocking, Russell's head has never been found. By 2014, Russell and Shirley Dermond had been married for a whopping 68 years. Their son Brad would later describe them as, quote, salt of the earth people. Russell Joseph Dermond was born on the 6th of June 1925 in Hackensack, New Jersey, to his parents Margaret Tedesco Dermond and Russell Charles Dermond. He served in the United States Navy during World War II as well. Shirley Bell Wilcox was born on the 7th of July, 1926, in Maywood, New Jersey, to her parents, Phyllis Bell Wilcox and Alan Wilcox. While not much is known about their personal lives growing up, the pair married on December 15th, 1950. They would have 4 children together: Mark, Keith, Leslie, and Brad, which I believe is accurate from oldest to youngest from my research. After the war and as a veteran, Russell provided for the family by working in the fast food industry, owning and operating several Hardee's brand locations in Atlanta, Georgia. In 1994, he finally retired. That same year, he and Shirley would buy the land for their future home, permanently moving to Eatonton, Georgia. Their new home would be Great Waters Rentals on Lake Oconee near the Jack Nichols designed golf course, a gated community cul de sac where many retirees relocate to spend their sunset years. At the time, the 3,200 square foot home cost $1 million to build. It also included a boat dock along the lakeside of the property, although at the time of the murders, the Dermonds did not own a boat. Unfortunately, tragedy would first hit the family in 2000 when the Dermonds' eldest son, Mark, was shot and murdered in Atlanta trying to purchase cocaine. I could not find whether this crime was solved or unsolved, prosecuted or not. It seems like, unfortunately, whatever happened to Mark has gone unsolved as well. Overall, though, Russell and Shirley seemed happy, well liked, and highly regarded among their neighbors in the cul de sac. Roy Dunning, one neighbor who lived near them for about 11 years at the time of their murders, commented to 11 Alive News that he didn't know them well enough, but that, quote, they were very, very nice, quiet people, end quote. The couple were also considered private by their son, Brad. Sheriff Sills later said during the height of the investigation that these were people who did not use their cell phones or internet often. The couple were both religious and involved in the Oconee Community Church for 7 years before their deaths. They had even attended the previous Easter Mass. Their pastor, a Reverend David Kelly, said that they were a, quote, sweet couple, unassuming, family oriented. We really just don't know how they'd have any enemies or anybody who want to do anything to them, end quote. During their time on Lake Oconee, the Dermonds seemed to enjoy their time fully. Russell's hobbies included golf, reading, and walking around their secluded neighborhood. As described by their son Brad, Russell was a thoughtful businessman, disciplinarian, and Brad's favorite golfing partner. Shirley's hobbies included crossword puzzles, gardening, playing bridge, writing, and creating arts. Being only children growing up, Shirley and Russell enjoyed having their family around, including their 9 grandchildren. So much so that the Dermond grandchildren would attend a summer camp at Lake Oconee, along with Russell and Shirley every single year. Russell Dermond was last reported to be seen alone on the 1st of May 2014, running errands in Eatonton. Remember, this is 5 days before he'll be found deceased in the garage. At 2:15 p.m., he was at the People's Bank drive-thru where he transferred money. At 2:26 p.m., he made it to the local Publix, grabbing a prescription needed for Shirley's cataract surgery that was coming up, bread, and cucumbers. The clothes he was seen wearing on the surveillance video at the Publix were as follows: sunglasses, a green polo, khaki shorts, and gym shoes. These would be the same clothes police later found in the couple's bedroom at the home, signifying that he at least changed prior to the murders. Later in the day, Russell and Shirley both spoke to their son Brad over the phone. Everything was normal, and they mostly chatted about their days, which was something they did often. I was not able to find when this phone call took place, though. The couple were expected to attend a 2014 Kentucky Derby party within their neighborhood the weekend of May 3rd or 4th, but never arrived. Neighbors interviewed by the FBI had no reports of noise coming from the house at any time. It seems that no one checked in on the couple even though they no-showed to the party. That is until May 6th. On this day, at 10 a.m., a couple of neighbors Whether they are a married couple or just two individuals, I wasn't able to figure out or verify. But they went to the Dermond house to check on the pair. Finding the front door unlocked, they entered as such to search for them. After looking through the house, the man of the couple found Russell in the garage and called 911. Police at first thought that Shirley had been kidnapped and would most likely not be found alive. Then her body was found 10 days later. At the time of their murders, both Shirley and Russell were healthy and had no known mental health issues. There were also no reports of domestic abuse problems throughout their marriage. After finding Russell, but before finding Shirley 10 days later, initial searches of the lake, woods, and cul-de-sac with cadaver dogs brought no leads. Within the home, investigators determined there could have been multiple crime scenes, at least two or three possible ones, causing confusion as to what exactly happened where. Overall, it's impossible to determine what really happened inside the home, if anything happened inside the home at all. Was Russell decapitated there? Was Shirley murdered on the property? No one can say for certain. No evidence of Shirley being killed in the home was ever found, but neither was anything regarding Russell's death and decapitation either. Sills believes that it's possible both of them were killed somewhere besides the home, considering the lack of evidence. What Sills could determine for sure was that Russell's head had been cut off post mortem, telling Edition Digital, quote, "If you've ever seen an arterial wound, it spurts blood everywhere, and we don't have that there," end quote. Sills also quickly determined, due to Russell's beheading and the disappearance of Shirley, that the crime was intentional and committed by professionals. But the couple had no known enemies. The moving of Shirley to a secondary location, to at least dispose of her remains in the lake, and the removal of Russell's head speaks to people who knew what they were doing. But why would anyone do this? Sills later explained to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that, quote, "professional likely would not expand the time it takes to decapitate." And, quote, "they shoot you in the head and leave. So why go to the trouble of everything else in this case?" Nothing was noted as being stolen from the house, like money, jewelry, or medications. Shirley's purse and phone were also still in the home. No forced entry or signs of a struggle were noted by investigators either. So, did the Dermonds know the person or persons who murdered them and let them in willingly, or were they convinced to do so? A week after finding Russell's body and before finding Shirley's body, Sheriff Sills had asked for help from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Crime Lab, or the GBI, but not their investigative committee. He said, quote, "If you can tell me something the GBI agent knows how to do that I don't know how to do, then I'll be glad and call them," end quote. The department and Sills, however, were getting help from the FBI BAU, along with 6 other sheriff offices at the time, due to the fact it was believed Shirley was abducted. The sheriff's department and the FBI have interviewed hundreds of people in this investigation, but leading to no arrests. The FBI also established a profile for the perpetrators that is as follows: male, likes guns, and knives. Sheriff Sills is of the opinion that the FBI agents did much to help solve the case, except for garnering more questions than answers. So, what do we know for sure? Russell's time of death was determined to be between the 1st of May at 4:30 p.m., when mail was delivered to the home, and the 4th of May at 6 p.m. after they did not show up to the neighborhood derby party. Other notable injuries to Russell's body included a severe finger wound in which blood and Shirley's hair were found in, cluing into some kind of struggle to protect one another. Again, Russell's head was most likely taken to hide evidence and has still never been found. Locally, the neighborhood had very little crime prior to the double homicide. The private community did have a guardhouse at the main entrance, just no gates, as well as security officers and surveillance cameras. Cameras at the guardhouse were not working at the time of the murders because of a storm that had occurred 2 weeks before that knocked them out. Sheriff Sills commented that security was, quote, relaxed at the community. Nor the Dermonds or their nearby neighbors had security cameras on any of their homes. Because of these factors, it was never determined how the killer or killers made their way into the house, whether by accessing the community through driving in, boating up, or walking. What Sheriff Sills does believe, though, is that Shirley's body was disposed by boat. At the time, Sills did not believe the crime was random, but that he wasn't ruling anything out. In 2018, 4 years later, the investigation was cold. The remaining Dermond family were relying on Putnam County, FBI, and the public to answer the big question as to who would do something like this. In 2019, on the 5-year anniversary of the murders, Sills was interviewed about the crime, commenting that he was, quote, personally and professionally embarrassed about it going unsolved, admitting he was no closer to solving it. At the time, they were tracking down any leads the office was getting, remarking as well that he, quote, appreciated the phone calls because he realizes people are merely trying to help. We still aggressively pursue anything that's possible, end quote. At this point, Sills revealed that he believed Shirley was not killed at the home. The longtime sheriff admitted that they had physical evidence that could possibly confirm the killer's identities, but was not being disclosed for the sake of the investigation. While Sills was not ruling out a monetary motive for the killings, it still didn't make sense for him as nothing was taken from the home, but, quote, I think whoever this was went there because they thought the Dermonds had something or had access to something of great value, end quote. Sheriff Sills also concluded at this time that they may have known one or more of their killers due to the lack of struggle found in the house. All 3 of the adult Dermond children lived out of state at the time of the murders, both sons in Florida and their daughter in North Carolina at the time. And they passed polygraph tests performed by the FBI. Not only did they cooperate with the investigation, but they did not inherit much money from their parents' deaths either, conclusively ruling them out. As of May 2023, Sills reported to WMAZ-TV that he personally delivered boxes of evidence back in March of 2023 to a genetics testing lab called Orthram Inc., located in Texas, in hopes of finding new DNA evidence, which they did. It has not been determined whose DNA it is, including the Dermonds or possible complice contamination. Sills spoke on the matter that, quote, now this could very well be the Dermond's DNA, or some officer possibly even left his DNA, end quote. Overall, though, it seems to be a small update in a case that has been stagnant for some time. Leads and motivations for the double murder remain few and far between, even 10 years later. Sheriff Sills, who still holds his position at the time of this recording, conjectures that multiple people are involved in the crime. Police do not believe there is any connection between the murder of Mark Dermond and his parents 14 years later. Family, friends, and those who were close with or interacted often with the couple were also excluded from the suspect list after background checks from police and interviews with the FBI. And unfortunately, that's it. Brad Dermond told Tampa Bay 10 News that he, quote, still talks of his golfing buddy nearly every day, has dreams about his dad as well. He said Russell comes to him offering him clues about his death, but he wakes up before it leads anywhere, and he's left at a loss all over again, perplexed because his parents, he said, had no dark side or secrets that would have resulted in their murders. Brad continued on to say that, quote, we may not like how long it takes, but it will be solved. When you start involving more and more people, it increases the chances of information being shared. And that's the information we're looking for, end quote. And so, anyone with information on the murders of Russell and Shirley Dermond should reach out to the Putnam County Sheriff's Office of Eatonton, Georgia at 706 485 8557. This is a 24-hour number. Or you can also call the Lake Oconee Precinct number at 706 485 3014. These numbers and the rest of the information will be in the show notes for this episode. These are the only unsolved murders in the county and in Sills' 4 decades as sheriff. Noting in a press conference 2 days after Russell was found, Sills said that it's, quote, the most frustrating homicide he's handled in his career. 9 years later, in May of 2023, he echoed the same sentiment to WMAZ TV, quote, it's very, very frustrating, very troubling. I get up every morning and I think about this case. He also has no plans on retiring anytime soon before this case is solved. I believe that this case is solvable. And for the sake of the Dermond family and everyone who knew them, I hope that justice comes soon. To lose someone you love like this is entirely unimaginable. To have it be unsolved is another level of grief altogether. For the Dermond family and those who knew Russell and Shirley well, I wish you all the peace in the world. So, final thoughts. Admittedly, I'm doing this without a script, so I apologize for being a little rambly. I'm better when I write down my words before I speak them. You know, hey, we all have our faults. But Russell and Shirley, they, to me, were just so quintessential American dream, to work so hard in your lives to get to where you get and just say, let's enjoy ourselves, for this last portion of our lives. Like, let's enjoy ourselves. Let's go down to Georgia. We'll build a nice house. We'll have the family come down. We'll have the grandkids every summer. Life, we'll really enjoy life. think of it, it's just so, that to me is just so quintessential, like American dream right there. You know, you've made it. You did it. You get to enjoy your life now fully. The fruits of your labor, there for you. Um, and even with everything Brad had to say about his parents, he seems like the spokesperson for the family for the most part. So that's why there's a lot of snippets and a lot of quotes and photos from him specifically. But they just remind me so much of my grandparents, my mom's parents. You know, like how Russell loved golf and how Shirley loved like crafting, that sort of thing. It's just so, it was just so sweet. They seemed like just just sweet older people, you know, who truly like loved their family. And it's such a tragedy, you know. I think, well, at least for me, I could go down a rabbit hole of every single question left unanswered by this case. And I would love to hear everyone's thoughts, your questions, comments, everything um, about this episode in the comments, in your reviews, whatever, um, about what you think about this case as well. You know, I did this research initially about a little over a year ago and then revisited it to finally record this episode. And I came to the realization of like why I wanted this to be the first episode for this podcast, because it's truly a mystery. There's truly so much unknown in the murders of these two wonderful people. And the truth is out there, you know, the answers are out there for us to have. I think it's just going to depend on who wants to give them up and when, unfortunately. So I hope that one day that comes to fruition for the sake of their children and their grandchildren. They certainly deserve some peace after all of these years, 11 years. And certainly for Russell and Shirley, who deserve some justice after all of this time. Um, I can't even imagine what a horror, what a heartache to go through. Um, but yeah, that's really, uh, there's a reason why just every once a month, like this case just pops into my head. And I just think of all the possibilities about this one. And again, I would love to hear everyone's thoughts about what they think. And of course, if you yourself know anything, please report it to the correct authorities for this, because this family could definitely use some answers after all of this time. Um, and Shirley and Russell certainly deserve it after all of these years. Thank you for joining me this evening for the first ever episode of Mysteries by Moonlight. All information from this episode will be linked in the show notes, wherever you're listening, including the officials and phone numbers if you have any information on this case at all. My research and sources for all the information obtained for this episode will also be linked in the show notes or description wherever you're listening or watching this podcast from as well. I'm so grateful for your ears and attention, your hearts and your minds. Please rate and review the show on your podcast player of choice. Follow me over on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for the visual companion for this episode. It's Mysteries by Moonlight on each platform. And join me here next month when we'll be exploring something a little bit lighter. One of the freakiest alien abduction stories I've ever heard of. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go stare at the moon. Good night.